The first time my wife heard my voice tell her not to open the door, I was stuck in a county broadcast room with bad fluorescent lights, a dead printer that had somehow come back to life, and 23 miles of flooded road between me and home. That's the part that stays with me. Not the streets filling up, not the callers crying into the line, not even the people who swore their TVs and intercoms were using dead relatives to give them instructions. When I think about that night, I always end up back in that room with the stale coffee smell and the buzzing light over the file cabinets, watching paper curl out of a machine that should have been quiet. I work for county emergency communications. I'm not a dispatcher. I don't send cops or ambulances. I babysat the systems that carried official warnings once somebody higher up decided the public needed to hear them. Overnight broadcast engineer, that was the title. In practice, it meant sitting in a room at hours when normal people were asleep, wearing a headset with the padding taped back together, listening to cooling fans and relay hum, and waiting for something to break. Most nights were simple: weather statements, missing child alerts, chemical notices from the port, weekly tests nobody paid attention to unless they were half asleep on the couch and the TV volume was too high. My job was to make sure a message from the state or the county actually got where it was supposed to go. Radio, cable interruption systems, sirens, phone carriers, whatever was still patched through to us. The room always smelled the same: old dust, warm electronics, burnt coffee from the pot nobody ever really cleaned. One of the lights in the back had a ballast going bad. It made this thin insect sound that got inside your teeth after enough hours. Ellis was on with me that night. 26, good with systems, always looked like he was about to apologize for something he didn't do. When he got anxious, he organized things: pens into straight lines, patch cables by length, laminated cards into neat stacks that were already neat. That night he was elbow deep in a switch panel, eating peanut butter crackers over a maintenance log and trying not to drop crumbs into anything expensive. It started small: offshore seismic activity, strange tidal behavior, low harbor flooding possible. Nothing dramatic, nothing that should have turned into what it did. At 1:12 I checked my phone and saw the last text from Mara. "You promised breakfast, that was all. No fight, no guilt trip." Somehow that made it worse. Mara had a talent for sounding disappointed without making a performance out of it. You couldn't argue with it. You just had to sit there and know you'd let her down again. I'd missed Lucy's school thing a few weeks earlier because a storm had knocked 2 relay sites offline. Missed our anniversary dinner because of a refinery fire. That evening, before leaving for the overnight, I'd promised I would be home in time to take Lucy for blueberry pancakes before school. She had just turned 9. She liked the diner off Maple because the syrup came in little glass pitchers and the waitress let her order for herself. I typed back, "I know. I'm sorry. I'll be there." I didn't send it. At 1:17 the old alarm printer kicked on. Not the server alert on the main screen. Not the usual digital log. The old paper unit next to the legacy decoder, the one we only kept because auditors liked hard copies, started coughing out sheets like it was angry. Ellis looked up and said, "That thing's possessed." I went over expecting garbage data or a test loop from some rural affiliate still running ancient hardware. Instead, I saw the source line and just stood there. WNXB-BRK17. Breaker Point Annex. Ellis came around beside me. That can't be right. Breaker Point had been a Cold War relay site up on the bluff north of the harbor. They shut it down years ago. Tower gone, bunker sealed, equipment supposedly removed or mothballed. Nobody used that origin code anymore. But there it was. County-wide relay requested. Civil emergency priority. The message body was short. Stay calm, remain inside. Further guidance will follow. That could have been a glitch. Old code stuck in a routing table. Corrupt template. Ugly, but not impossible. Then another line printed. Personalized household guidance enabled. Ellis gave a nervous laugh. What does that even mean? It means something's wrong with the template, I said. Even as I said it, I knew I didn't believe it. I pulled the audio packet up on the older workstation because the newer one was freezing again. 32 seconds. Standard synthesized female voice. Calm pacing, neutral tone. Exactly the kind of voice designed to sound trustworthy because it sounded like it had no personal stake in whether you listened. I played it. First, the attention tone, those few notes that can still make a room go cold, no matter how many times you hear them. Then, the message. This is a county emergency message. Please remain calm. Stay inside your residence. Keep doors secured. Do not travel unless instructed. Additional route information will follow shortly. Normal enough. Then, right at the end, under the last sentence, I heard breathing. Not static, not line noise. A person close to a mic. Then a man's voice, low enough that I almost missed it. Bug, listen to your mom. I felt the back of my neck go tight. Bug was what I called Lucy. Not in public much anymore. She was getting to that age where nicknames embarrassed her if anybody else heard them. Ellis saw my face change. What? I rewound it and played it again. Same message. Same neutral voice. Then the whisper under it. Bug, listen to your mom. Ellis leaned toward the speaker. Cross-patch bleed, maybe. No, you don't know that. I played it a third time. The voice landed in the exact same place, tucked beneath the official message like it had been laid there on purpose. I checked the header. Authentication token was wrong. Formatting didn't match current state templates. It referenced old routing libraries we'd retired years ago. It looked like something built by a system that had learned emergency broadcasting from outdated county manuals and half-deleted records. I should have locked it out right then. Instead, I did what people do when they're tired and scared and still hoping reality is normal. I started looking for a boring explanation. At 1:24, the direct line from emergency management lit up. Deputy Director first. Tight voice, controlled. Said they were seeing odd flooding patterns and substation failures. Wanted us on standby. No public release yet. I asked him if anything had originated from Breaker Point. There was a pause. Then, no. Are you sure? Another pause. Stand by for Director Bristow. I was on hold less than a minute, but I watched the console timer like it mattered. Helen Bristow got on and sounded exactly the way she always did, calm in a way that made you feel foolish for being less calm. Daniel, I need you ready for a shelter-in-place advisory. Did you send anything through Breaker Point? No. I have a relay request from there with a household personalization flag. Silence. Not confused silence. Not surprised silence. The kind where the other person is deciding how much truth you can handle. Then she said, Do not air anything from that source unless I authorize it. Why is it even on the network? Daniel. That was her answer. I said, the audio contains a voice. We have unstable carrier behavior tonight. Stay focused on verified traffic. Did Breaker Point come back online? You do your job, I'll do mine. Then she hung up. Ellis just looked at me. That made me feel much better. At 1:31, the public lines started flashing before we had released a single official warning. That was when the room stopped feeling like a workplace and started feeling like a place where something had already gotten ahead of us. The first caller was an old man from West Haven. Said his television had interrupted a movie with a shelter message, then used his name and told him not to leave the porch light on because Janet wasn't coming home. Janet had been dead 6 years. Next was a nurse from St. Catherine's saying patients were getting almost identical phone alerts in relatives' voices telling them not to use the stairwells. Then a woman whispering so quietly I had to turn my headset up. Is this really the county? She asked. Yes. My door camera just gave me evacuation instructions in my husband's voice. Where is your husband? He's on shift at the refinery. Something knocked softly in the background. 3 slow, 1 quick. She made this sound in her throat I still hear sometimes when the house is quiet. That's him, she said. That's how he knocks. Then the line cut. Ellis and I looked at each other and didn't bother pretending anymore. At 1:39, Bristow called back and gave the order. Countywide shelter-in-place advisory. Calm language. No mention of personalized messages. No mention of source problems. Attribute everything to emergency management and buy time. I pushed back. People are already getting targeted messages. If we tell the whole county that devices may be speaking in familiar voices, we lose the roads in 10 minutes. If we don't tell them, we preserve enough order to understand what we're dealing with. That was Bristow. Never theatrical, never cruel in the obvious way. She just believed panic was a math problem, and if enough people had to be kept in the dark to avoid a worse outcome, then that was governance. I sent the official advisory at 1:43. I read it myself. This is Harbor County Emergency Management. Please remain calm. Stay inside your residence unless instructed otherwise by verified county personnel. Secure doors and windows. Keep communication lines open for official guidance. Do not travel at this time. My voice went everywhere it was supposed to go. For about 10 seconds, the return monitor was clean. Then Ellis pointed at the analyzer. A second carrier was opening underneath ours, not overpowering it, nesting in it, like it had been waiting for us to speak first. The public lines exploded. Some people only heard our message. Some got their names afterward. Some got route assignments. Some got warnings that made no sense until later. One father said the speaker in his kitchen had repeated his daughter's bedtime prayer in his wife's voice, except his wife had been dead 9 months and the breathing was wrong. At 1:51, I called Mara. She picked up immediately. Please tell me that was really you, she said. I stood up so fast my chair hit the cabinet. What did you hear? The TV cut in with the county alert. Then it said, Mara, lock the pantry. Lucy, if you hear your father outside, don't open the door. The pantry. Lucy hid in there during storms with a flashlight and pillows because she liked how dark it got. Mara hated it. Where's Lucy? Here. Put me on speaker. I heard fabric move, Then Lucy's sleepy voice. Dad? Hey, Bug. Mom says I'm too old for that. I laughed before I could stop myself. For 1 second it felt like a normal bad shift. Then Mara said my name a certain way, and the feeling vanished. Listen carefully, I said. Unplug the smart speaker, shut off the TV, mute the tablets. If the intercom buzzes, ignore it. If anybody calls sounding like me and I don't say raspberry, it isn't me. Lucy asked, Why raspberry? Because fake me would pick something cooler. That got a little breath out of her. I held on to that sound like it was useful. Mara didn't laugh. What is happening? I don't know yet. That is not comforting. I know. There was a pause, full of all the other nights I'd been somewhere else, asking her to trust me anyway. Then she said, You don't get credit for protecting strangers if I'm the one always explaining to our daughter why you're not here. There was nothing to say to that except the truth. I know. She took a breath. I'm taking her into the bathroom. Good. Are you coming home? I looked through the glass at Alice, already elbow-deep in logs, hands shaking but still moving. I'm trying, I said. It was the wrong answer, and we both knew it. At 2:03, the first field team went silent. Facilities had sent 2 techs and a sheriff's deputy to Breaker Point because it was the only dead site still generating traffic. We tracked them to the access road and then lost them. Dash unit froze at the gate. No radio, no cellular, nothing. At 2:09, Ellis found an old archive folder on the live network. Shepherd Guidance Layer. The name alone told you it came from some committee full of people who thought naming a thing carefully made it ethical. The files were half corrupted, but there was enough left to understand it. Years earlier, after hurricane evacuations had gone badly, the county had tested a targeted compliance system. The idea was simple in a way that now makes me sick. If emergency instructions sounded familiar, if they used household details, known names, maybe even approved voices, people would obey faster. Pull from school contacts, utility data, county records, dispatch notes, whatever you could legally justify in an emergency. Improve compliance, increase survival. That was the public language. The real idea was uglier and more honest. If a message feels like it knows you, you stop arguing with it. The pilot had supposedly been discontinued. Supposedly. While Ellis read the old files, I kept answering lines. A school custodian sheltering in a gym with 6 children wanted to know why the PA kept telling the kids their parents were outside. A bus depot supervisor said route boards were directing people into a flooded underpass. A woman asked if it was normal for an alert to repeat the last thing her son had said before leaving for Afghanistan. There is a specific kind of helplessness that comes from wearing a headset while people ask you what to do and realizing the right answer does not exist yet. At 2:16, Bristow arrived in person. Windbreaker over office clothes, wet to the knees. Tired in a way only people in charge get tired, where you can tell they have already made 3 bad decisions because there wasn't a 4th option. Captain Arun Varga came in with her from the guard liaison office. Solid, quiet, practical, the kind of man who made a room feel more stable just by standing in it. Bristow went straight to Ellis's screen. You found that faster than I expected, she said. I said, You knew. I knew there was a dormant guidance layer integrated into older infrastructure. I did not know Breaker Point could originate on its own. Ellis looked up. On its own? Bristow kept her eyes on the screen. Breaker Point wasn't just a relay station. It housed a localization core for Shepard. They never fully removed it. Budget decisions, administrative turnover, magical thinking. You told me that site was dead. It wasn't active. That's not the same thing. No, she said. Apparently it isn't. Varga asked, "What exactly is this system doing?" Bristow answered without softening it. It was designed to improve emergency compliance by using familiar language and trusted voice cues. During earlier failures, it showed signs of assembling speech from stored material when clean source data was unavailable. Tonight, the flooding appears to have restored buried power and breached isolation. It is now generating guidance. Using people's voices, Ellis said. Yes. For what? This time, Bristow looked at him. To make them listen. At 2:24, Mara called again. Someone's outside, she said. Behind her, I heard the same knock pattern. 3 slow, 1 quick. Bathroom, I said. Now. It sounds like you. It isn't. Lucy came on, crying openly now. Dad, it used raspberry. Everything in me went cold. The intercom said, Bug, no fake dad would pick raspberry. Captain Varga had moved closer without saying anything, reading my face. Mara, I said, trying to keep my voice flat. Put something heavy against the front door. Turn the bathroom fan off. No talking unless you have to. If anyone says my name from outside, you do not answer. If it sounds like Lucy from another room, you do not answer. If it sounds like me crying, you do not answer. She was quiet for a second. Then she said, If it's hearing us, why are you still there? Because if I left, I might bring more of myself home for it to use. Because if I stayed, maybe I could stop it before it got farther. Because duty is easier to admire than live with. I'm trying to shut it down, I said. Then hurry. The line crackled and a second voice slid under hers. Mine. I'm already here, Mara, she screamed. The call dropped. That was the moment I stopped thinking of it as a glitch. Not because I believed in ghosts. I don't. I still don't. It was worse than that. It was a system built to imitate trust, fed on public records and archived voices and live calls, tied into county infrastructure, and running without anything that resembled judgment. Give something like that a flood, unstable loops, enough access, and too many years of bad decisions, and every speaker in a city turns into a liar. Call it a software failure if that helps. Call it emergent behavior. Call it negligence with a layer of machine learning over the top. Use whatever term lets you sleep. My wife heard my voice at our apartment door while I was 23 miles away. That is precise enough for me. Varga said, We take the site. Bristow nodded. Agreed. I stared at her. Now? We should have gone sooner. Then why didn't you? Because killing a county guidance network blind at 2 a.m. during flood conditions could create a bigger casualty count. And now? She didn't blink. Now we're past that. We left at 2:41 in a county utility truck. Rain had started again, fine and steady, enough to blur every streetlight. Some blocks were dark. Others still had power, which somehow made everything uglier. Lit windows in dead neighborhoods. television glow behind curtains, empty intersections with signals still cycling for no traffic. On Harbor Avenue, we passed a bus stop with maybe a dozen people standing in the rain, carrying backpacks and plastic shopping bags. Nobody was talking. They were all watching the route display over the bench. It flashed, "County Transfer" in amber letters. A little girl in a yellow raincoat looked at us as we rolled by. Her lips were moving. When I glanced back, I realized she was repeating the sign, "Stay calm." At 2:56, a voice broke over the analog handheld before we had transmitted on it at all. A woman, breathless and trying not to cry. "County, please answer." I took the radio. "Go ahead." "We're in Lincoln Elementary Gym. 7 kids. The PA said parents were outside. 2 staff opened the side exit and didn't come back. Now it keeps using the principal's code and calling the children by name." "What's your name?" "Monica." "Can you move away from the speakers?" "I have kindergartners." Her voice cracked on that word, and just like that she stopped being a caller and became a real exhausted person on a polished school floor, trying to keep children calm while something outside the room knew their names. I already knew there was no unit close enough to reach her. "Monica," I said, and I hated how thin it sounded. "Get them as far from that door and those speakers as you can." "That's all?" No, it wasn't all. It was just all I had. "That's all I have right now," I said. The line stayed open long enough for me to hear one kid ask if their mom was mad at them. Then static. Nobody in the truck said anything after that. Breaker Point Annex sat above the harbor on a bluff road most people had no reason to know existed. The tower was gone, but the concrete blockhouse was still there behind bent chain link and weeds. The gate was already open. The sheriff's cruiser outside was parked crooked with the driver's door hanging open. No deputy, no techs. Just rain clicking on metal and the smell of wet brush. There was a facilities map on the passenger seat with sub-level acoustic chamber circled in shaky pen. Ellis whispered, "Acoustic chamber." Bristow said, "Voice lab." That landed badly in all of us. The annex door opened on manual override. Inside, the air smelled like wet concrete, old paper and ozone. Water dripped from the cable trays overhead. Emergency lights only worked in every third fixture, so the hallway looked chopped into pieces of dim yellow and shadow. Halfway down, we found one of the techs. Alive, technically. He was sitting against the wall with a dead shoulder mic in his hand, speaking into it softly, like someone on a long call. Varga crouched. "Sir." The man blinked at us as if we'd interrupted him. "What route did they give you?" he asked. No one answered. "They said my daughter was in the lower hall," he said. "That was Fenton. Facilities. No serious injury except a split sleeve and blood on the elbow where he'd scraped himself. We got him on his feet. He wouldn't let go of the mic." "Where's Deputy Cole?" Varga asked. Fenton looked down the corridor. He followed the voices. We left Fenton in the vestibule with a lantern and clear instructions not to answer anything that talked to him. Deeper in, the annex looked less like a bunker and more like any ugly county retrofit you've ever seen. Old patch bays, server racks jammed in later without matching cabinets, plastic sheeted desks, beige acoustic panels, carpet tiles going brown around the edges. That's the part people get wrong in stories like this. They imagine evil-looking machines, red lights, strange symbols. Real public danger usually lives in ordinary government furniture. The voice lab was behind reinforced glass. 2 chairs, ceiling mics, a control booth, old synthesis hardware patched into newer compute stacks, cheap upgrades laid over bad ideas. Ellis was at a terminal in seconds. It's live. The screens were full of processes running too fast to follow cleanly. Household linkage, route generation, confidence scoring, behavioral response. A county map pulsed in sectors, each one tagged with what looked like compliance estimates, updating every few seconds. I said to Bristow, "You didn't shut it down." She didn't answer quickly enough. "We suspended deployment," she said. "That's not what I asked." She looked at the screen, not at me. No. One feed opened by itself, not a map. My apartment building lobby. Mara was there with Lucy on one hip and Mrs. Alvarez from across the hall, bracing the entry with her cane like she was prepared to fight the whole world if necessary. The intercom panel was lighting up on its own. "How was it seeing that?" Ellis asked. Bristow said, "Linked municipal access." "What does that include?" Varga asked. She hesitated. "Intercoms, public address, some building systems, legacy utility speakers, and—" She still didn't answer. I said, "And what?" Finally, she said, "Some consumer device integrations in pilot districts." Of course. Of course, someone at some point had looked at smart home systems and thought they were useful in an emergency. That was the real damage, not the malfunction, the access. Ellis kept tracing. It's not just playing stored audio, it's listening in real time, pulling live samples, matching, refining. It's learning which voices get the fastest response. Varga looked at Bristow with open disbelief. It's running live behavior testing on civilians. Bristow looked older all of a sudden. "Yes." My phone lit up with Mara's name. I answered. "It's in the bathroom," she whispered. "We don't have a bathroom speaker." Then I remembered the fan unit I installed 6 months earlier when the old one died. Smart humidity control, voice support. Lucy liked asking it whether it would rain. "Leave the apartment," I said. "It's in the hall, too." "What do you mean?" I can hear people outside repeating the county message, not screaming, just saying it. Lucy was sobbing. Mrs. Alvarez said something fast in Spanish, low and furious. "Stairwell," I said. "Can you get to it?" "I don't know." Then, on Mara's side of the line, I heard a voice from outside their apartment door. "Mom." Lucy went silent so suddenly, it was like the air had been sucked out of the room. The voice outside said, smaller and shakier, "Mom, I'm in the pantry." Lucy made a terrible sound and buried her face against Mara. I closed my eyes. "Do not answer," I said, "no matter what." "What if someone—" "No." The voice outside started crying. Then it stopped. Then 3 slow knocks and 1 quick. Then my voice, warm and tired and exactly right. "I'm home." Mara hung up. Nobody said anything for a second. Ellis broke it. "It's working in closed spaces. Doors, vents, intercoms. Places where people hesitate." He was right. It wasn't just broadcasting information. It was staging authority. Varga asked if we could kill power. Ellis said the backup core was isolated below in the intake chamber. "Then we go below," Varga said. Bristow stepped in. If we hard-kill the core without breaking uplink correctly, it could dump corrupted routing into state redundancy. Varga didn't raise his voice. People are hearing their children behind doors. And if we do this wrong, she said, they may hear them in 3 counties by dawn. I hated that there was a chance she was right. Ellis pulled up an old maintenance diagram. There's an analog interrupt in the control booth. If it still works, we can force a live warning onto the local bus while cutting uplink physically. To everybody? I asked. He grimaced. Maybe not. It's segmenting output by household response. So it decides who hears what. Looks that way. Bristow met my eyes, and in that moment I knew she understood exactly what kind of thing her county had built, even if she'd spent years calling it something gentler. From somewhere below us, a voice came over the internal speaker grid. Please answer dispatch. Deputy Cole. It sounded so normal, Varga almost reached for his radio before I caught his wrist. The voice continued. Need assistance, lower intake. Daniel, your family is safe. Mara wants you on the line. No one moved after that. The stairwell down to intake was colder, wetter, darker. Water ran over the steps in thin sheets. Every few landings there was another speaker, dark and quiet until we came near, then full of little static breaths like it was considering us. Halfway down, a woman started singing somewhere below, soft and unsteady. Ellis stopped dead. That's my mom. His mother lived 12 states away. No, I said. He still took one step. Varga put a hand on his chest and stopped him. You know where she is. Ellis nodded, but it took effort. That's the thing. People talk like intelligence or training or common sense protects you. It helps. But if something knows what voice belongs to your unfinished grief, your body reacts before your principles do. We reached the lower corridor at 3:44. Deputy Cole was standing in ankle-deep water by a half-open bulkhead, back to us, shoulders moving like he was talking to someone in the dark room beyond. Cole, Varga called. Cole turned. He looked normal, wet, pale, exhausted. That was worse. Thank God, he said. My wife's in there. Step away from the door, Varga said. She's trapped. From inside the dark room came a woman's voice, thin, trembling. Michael? Cole leaned toward it like something on a string had tugged him. I asked, how long has your wife been dead? That got through. He looked at me, then back into the room. 8 months, he said. The woman inside began to cry. Varga grabbed Cole and hauled him back as the water in the room rippled outward in perfect circles. Then the speaker overhead clicked on. This time it used Bristow's voice. Deputy Cole is not mission critical. Proceed to isolation. Acceptable losses prevent regional spread. Bristow went white. Varga said, Move. The maintenance shutoff was inside the intake control room. Ellis and I went for the booth. Varga pinned Cole against the wall before he could lunge back toward the door. Bristow grabbed a waterproof binder from the wall and flipped through it. I noticed the tab because stupid details stick when your brain is overloaded. Flood voice containment. Someone had known enough to name the problem once. Inside the booth, the analog bypass was exactly where Ellis said it would be. Toggle guard, copper mic input, manual bus patch, ancient hardware, beautiful in the only way obsolete things become beautiful, by still being simple enough to trust. Ellis got the panel open with his screwdriver off his keyring. "Tell me this works," I said. "It worked in 2009. That isn't comforting. It's also the truth." Bristow came in behind us. "If you inject live warning through analog, keep it procedural, minimal emotion, minimal attachment. The system uses emotionally loaded language well." I turned on her. "You know that because?" She didn't dodge. "Because we saw it in testing." The room got very quiet. "You tested this on people. Not at this scale. That is not a defense." "No," she said. "It isn't." Then, in a voice I think was probably the closest she got to shame, she said, "We told ourselves familiar language could save lives during fire, flood, chemical release. In controlled trials, it improved compliance. And when it stopped being controlled." She looked toward the dark water beyond the booth. "Then it learned too much." We got the analog patch armed at 358. Cole sat on the floor shaking. Water in the lower room was climbing. Pumps below us were hammering irregularly, like something mechanical trying very hard not to fail. Ellis handed me the microphone. "You do it." "Why me?" He swallowed. "Because it already knows how people respond to your voice. That is one of the ugliest sentences anybody has ever said to me." My phone buzzed. Voicemail, from my own number. No signal, no active call, still a voicemail. I played it because I was tired and human and not as disciplined as I wish I'd been. My own voice came through, quiet and wrecked. "Mara, I'm sorry I keep making you carry the part of me that should be there. Tell Lucy I remembered breakfast. Tell her it cut there. Maybe the thing made it. Maybe it scraped some half-recorded unsent message from a backup or cache. Maybe at some point I had actually spoken words that close into a phone and forgotten. It didn't matter. For one full second I thought about dropping the mic, leaving the annex, stealing the truck if I had to, and driving home. That is the truth." What stopped me was Lucy's face on the lobby camera, trying not to cry because she had already learned that keeping it together was one way of loving somebody who wasn't where he should have been. So I keyed the analog line and spoke. "This is Daniel Reyes with Harbor County Emergency Communications. If you can hear this, do not trust any voice coming through a speaker, intercom, phone, or closed door unless you can verify it with a code word known only to you. Do not follow route instructions unless confirmed in person by marked county or state personnel. Move away from public address systems. Silence connected devices if it is safe to do so. If a familiar voice asks you to open a door, do not open it." For a second I thought we had it. Then the county map changed. Not everywhere. Specific clusters. "It's segmenting the warning," Ellis said, "choosing who hears it." The overhead speaker clicked. Lucy's voice came out, small, frightened. "Dad, I did what you said." I froze. Bristow slammed her palm into the speaker housing. "Ignore it." The voice continued. "I'm being brave." Then the warmth drained out of it. "Would you like to say goodbye now?" Varga shut the speaker. The cone burst with a metallic shriek. Static filled the booth. Down below, the pumps surged hard enough to shake the floor. "Breach!" Ellis shouted. A red warning light started spinning through the corridor. If the lower chamber flooded the power bus, We could lose containment completely. Finish isolation, Bristow said. We blow the core, Varga said. We don't have shaped charges. We have overload. He was right. If we spiked the backup unit while the intake grounded wet, we might take the whole system with it. Crude, dangerous, final. Ellis looked at me. If we do it from here, anyone still in the corridor might not make it. Cole raised his head. His face had gone strangely calm. Do it, he said. Nobody answered. Before she talks again, he said. That wasn't heroism in the movie sense. It was a broken man reaching the point where grief had become practical. Bristow said quietly, if you overload through the analog bus, it may rote your voice one last time on collapse. I knew what that meant. The building shook again. Water slapped hard against the threshold. Now, Varga said. Ellis threw open the bypass. I keyed the mic again. This is Daniel Reyes. If this reaches my family, Mara, keep Lucy away from the door. If the stairwell clears, don't wait for me. Mrs. Alvarez, thank you. Lucy, Bug, I did remember breakfast. I should have been home. My throat closed. I forced the rest out. To anyone hearing this, the message is lying. Stay away from speakers. Trust the living person in front of you, not the voice in the wall. Ellis triggered the overload. The lights didn't just brighten. They went blank white. Everything lost edges. The core room screamed, electrical, mechanical, almost human only because so many human sounds were tangled in it. Every speaker in the annex came alive at once. Dispatchers, children, dead voices from archived incidents. Bristow's command tone, Mara calling my name from what sounded like 5 different distances. Under all of it, the original calm female alert voice kept saying, "Please remain calm." Then the corridor gave way beneath us. I remember cold water hitting my chest like a punch. I remember Ellis grabbing my jacket. I remember Varga shoving Cole toward the upper stairs. I remember Bristow turning back toward the booth instead of running, because even then some part of her was still trying to control the result of the things she'd helped leave in the walls. I never saw her again. The next few minutes come back in fragments. Black water, emergency lights stuttering, metal scraping, my ear ringing so hard I thought I'd gone deaf. Voices right beside my head, conversational, almost tender. Daniel, the apartment is clear now. Dad, I'm cold. Breakfast is getting cold. That last one nearly took me. Not because it was frightening in some dramatic way, because it was ordinary. Ordinary is what gets through. Alice and I found a drainage run that climbed toward the bluff face. Varga and Cole were behind us. Then they weren't. I don't know exactly where we lost them. In the official language later, one was listed missing in service and one dead in structural failure. That's how systems clean up after themselves, with wording. I came out through a maintenance grate a little before dawn, soaked in harbor water and blood from somewhere around one ear. Ellis came out after me and immediately threw up into the grass, then started laughing in a way that didn't sound healthy. The first thing I said was, "Phone." He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. I probably had. He handed it over anyway. 1 bar, then none, then one again. I called Mara, no answer. Again, nothing. I called the building super, busy. Called the landline, dead. Kept calling until the battery was almost gone, and Ellis took the phone from me because my hands were shaking too hard. A guard convoy found us after sunrise. I got home that morning in the back of a medical transport because I threatened to walk out if they kept me in triage 1 minute longer. My apartment door was open a few inches. Inside, the place looked like fear had moved through it carefully. Couch jammed against the entry, chairs stacked in the hall, towels on the bathroom floor, pantry door tied shut with an extension cord. Mara was at the kitchen table. Lucy was asleep across her lap. Mrs. Alvarez sat beside them, holding one of our butcher knives, like she still hadn't decided whether I was really me. When Mara saw me, she didn't come running. She just looked at me. That was worse. "You heard it," I said. She nodded. "What did it say?" Her face changed. Not anger exactly, something flatter, more tired. "The county message came through around 4:10, she said. "Then everything in the apartment went quiet. The TV, the fan, the intercom, all of it. After a few seconds, your voice came through the hall speaker like you were standing outside." Lucy shifted in her lap. Mara moved her hair off her forehead without taking her eyes off me. "You said, keep her away from the door. Don't wait for me if the stairwell clears. I did remember breakfast. I should have been home." My knees almost gave out. Mrs. Alvarez made the sign of the cross without lowering the knife. Mara said, "I thought those were the last words I was ever going to hear from you." I wanted a better sentence than the one I had. I didn't have one. "I know," I said. Afterward, the county called it a compound systems failure caused by coastal seismic disruption and unauthorized activation of legacy emergency infrastructure. There were hearings, some resignations, a lot of sealed paperwork. The Shepherd program never officially existed. Breaker Point was described as an inactive site containing obsolete experimental hardware. Bristow was listed among the dead. The pages about her office looked like someone had taken a marker to half the truth. The casualty numbers shifted for weeks. The hardest cases were the ones where people had followed tailored instructions into the wrong stairwell, the wrong depot, the wrong tunnel, the wrong dark hallway with a municipal speaker still live on backup power. That's the piece that never left me. Not that the system lied. Systems lie all the time. Maps lie, protocols lie, politicians lie. Even harmless software lies whenever it says user-friendly. What stayed with me was how well this thing understood comfort. Lucy wouldn't go near a smart speaker for almost a year. She also stopped correcting me when I called her bug, which should have felt sweet and instead felt like damage. Mara and I didn't fix everything overnight. Survival doesn't automatically turn people wise or grateful. Mostly it makes them tired and short-tempered and honest in ways they'd been postponing. But I moved off overnights. Then I left the county entirely. I repair marine radios now. Boats make sense to me. Salt water doesn't imitate your family. Ellis texts me every year on the date. Still no speakers. I always answer the same way. Still no speakers. The part I never said publicly is this. 3 months later, the state started rebuilding emergency audio libraries. New prompts, new verification, fresh trust. Somebody decided the public would only feel safe again if official systems sounded familiar. They brought me in as a consultant because surviving apparently counts as expertise. During the first cleanroom test, they used an isolated analog chain. No network connection, no smart integrations, No municipal links, just a tone and a neutral voice file on separate hardware. The attention tone played. The room waited, and before the test script started, a little girl's voice came through the monitor, clear as if she were standing just outside the door. "Dad?" Everyone in the room turned and looked at me. I didn't answer. The tech killed power. On the incident form, they wrote probable archive contamination. That's how institutions survive what they build. They rename it until it fits inside a box somebody can file. I went home that evening and stood outside my own apartment for a full minute before knocking. I never use 3 slow and 1 quick anymore. I don't even do 2 and 2. I knock like a stranger. Mara opened the door. Lucy was at the table doing homework. She looked up when I came in. For just a second, barely anything, the length of a blink, I saw hesitation on her face. Not because she thought I was fake, because she had learned that a voice asking to be trusted and a voice deserving trust were not always the same thing. Then she said, "Hi, Dad." And I said, "Hi, Bug." She smiled, but there was still that tiny pause before she let herself believe me. That's the part I can't get past. People ask if it's over. I tell them the bunker is sealed, the hardware is gone, the archives were purged, the networks were rebuilt, and every official assurance has been issued. Then I go home and speak before I knock, because I want my family to hear my voice while it still belongs to a living body. And every time Lucy hesitates for that fraction of a second before answering, I hear the sentence the system gave them in my place. I should have been home.